Hey guys, this is Fergal from Poker VIP. We are back for part 4 of the Beginner's Guide to Cash Game Poker, the next step over on Betsafe Poker. So for anyone not familiar with the series, it's been a double series. So the initial stage was we were playing 4NL, aimed purely at beginners who are looking to learn the basics of cash game poker and start turning a profit at the lowest limits. And the next step, the last 4 episodes, including this one, have moved on to slightly higher limits, so 10NL, and employing some more advanced techniques to start beating the games, as well as the basic use of a preliminary HUD. So that is what we're at now, and that is what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be playing 3 tables of regular 10NL, and it's just going to be a live play video for the next half hour or so. I'll be talking through my thought process as each and every spot arises, and I'll be telling you why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And hopefully be able to pick up a little thing or two and learn how to start beating these games successfully yourself. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the action. So we have a jack and a 3 suited. We are just going to be letting this one go. Obviously very little playability post flop, so not much point in continuing there when it's going to be a losing proposition. We have 4-5 suited here in the big blind. There is a pretty high chance that we're going to end up playing this hand either as a call versus a raise, or potentially as a 3-bet bluff, depending on the position of the raiser, if there is a raise. So we shall see. We'll wait for our opponents to make their decisions before we act. So if the button raises, for example, we're going to be happy to come back over the top here, and same for the small blind. But we get a walk and we have 5 high. We definitely don't mind that. And we have the exact same hand, just with spades instead of diamonds this time round. Versus an early position opener, we are not going to be looking to 3-bet too wide from this exact position. So we're just going to flat call here, look to see a flop, and encourage some multi-way action with the hand that has strong potential in a multi-way pop. And we're going to be folding the 6-5 from early position facing a raise. Or from the cutoff, should I say. And with the ace and the king, we are going to be bringing it in for a 3-bet on the button. Got a very small sample in this guy, but so far he seemed very active. But I mean, the sample is so small that it's essentially insignificant. We only have 11 hands in him, but he has been aggressive over those 11 hands. We are not planning on folding. If he comes back over the top, we will be jamming all in. That's what he does. And that is what we do. Good luck, us. If he folds here, we definitely don't mind. We pick up a reasonable sized pot, and that is what he does. That's fine by us. Excuse me. Obviously we have ace king. We don't hate a call there, but generally when we get called, we're going to be against a decent amount of pocket pairs. Some worse ace x, which is fantastic for us, but obviously against pocket pairs we're going to be flipping, and if we get it in dominating him, that's great news. And occasionally we are also going to run into aces or kings, which is a disaster for us, but hey, these things are going to happen. The 8 in the tray is going to be a straightforward fold. Potential pot brewing over here in the top right table. It was a multi-way flop. I didn't see how many people, but nope, the action is just taken down. So, interesting thing to note about that last ace-king hand, we now know that our read on this player that he is a bit more aggressive is probably correct, because A, he can 4-bet fold. A lot of people at these limits don't have a 4-bet folding range. They're only 4-betting for value, essentially, and they're not planning on folding it. We're going to let ace-10 go out of position versus an early position raise. So it's interesting to note on him that he can have 4-bets that are essentially a bluff, or at least for thin value. We're going to be doing the same thing against him again if he opens, which he does, which we like. Let's see if we can have a repeat. Obviously he's going to be less likely to 4-bet us as a bluff this time around, but the result is going to be the exact same. If he does do it, we are going to rejam. Fantastic flop for us, obviously. I see no reason not to bet it. With the 8-9 here, we're just going to check and call after we've gotten a caller up here. We're going to bet again here, and we're going to bet an amount that will allow us to comfortably jam the river for value against this guy. So yeah, we're going to check call, especially versus this sizing. We're never check folding. So he calls again. I mean, the chances of him having a hand like King 8 or King 9 are slim to none. So we've sized it in just an amount that we can really comfortably jam. So we're looking to get value here from hands like King Queen, essentially. Those types of hands. Sometimes we are going to be chopping this up as well. He can have Ace King for sure. It's very unlikely that he plays his sets this way. I would expect him to have played it a bit more aggressively. but he goes ahead and he folds, so we pick up a decent sized pot again, and this guy, I would imagine, is starting to dislike us after only 9 hands. He's probably not going to be too impressed after shipping half a stack our way without any showdown. So we chop it up here with the 8-9 versus the 8-7, fair enough result. And king and the jack of hearts, easy open from early position for me. We get a caller. We have a position on said callers. That is absolutely fine by us. Playing pots in position is just very, very difficult to lose in the long run. So when we have a reasonable holding, although our holding doesn't matter too much, the fact that we have position on this guy is going to count for a ton. And he hasn't shown too much strength, so we do have the range advantage right now as well, which is great news for us. This is a pretty bad flop for us though. He's going to have all sets in his range that he's flat calling from these positions. He's going to have some overpairs, he's going to have some draws, and just in general this is going to have connected his flat calling range from the small blind compared to our opening range from the mid position or from early position way more often. So this isn't a board I'm looking to attack. We are going to be c-betting tons of different types of board textures. This is not one of them. It's just such a bad board for our overall range. And even if we have an overpair, which is about the best that we can have, it's not like we're going to be looking to play for stacks on this board anyway, so if we do start betting, it just looks suspicious to me. So we're going to give this one up. It's going to really suck if we lose to ace high here, but I don't think betting makes any sense. He had ace queen, which I think he played that hand in a pretty reasonable manner, to be honest. He can consider 3-betting in pre, but I like the flat call, and I don't like investing any chips when he has showdown value post-flop either. So I think I like overall he played that hand quite well, I think. He had one of the hands that would have folded to some c-bets though, which is the only bad thing about us, but I think in general attacking that board is going to be a mistake for us. And on the river, I don't even think he's going to be folding ace queen on the river when we've shown so much weakness. So if we were going to look to take that down at any point, we would have had to either bet the flop or the turn. And yeah, I'm not a fan of doing either or, so I think I'm happy enough with how I played it as well. The ace and the deuce are the same suit. We are almost certainly going to be playing. We're going to be ISOing if this guy doesn't do anything crazy, and even if he does raise, we're still probably going to 3-bet it. Depending on his sizing, of course. He folds. Now we just have a pretty straightforward ISO. So when we're ISOing out of position, we make it 5x, so we make it 50 cent over his 10 cent limp. If this guy jams, it sucks, but we're going to have to call it off because we're just going to be getting too good a price. I think like 210 into, yeah, we'll be getting a very, very good price. Although maybe we can fold actually. It's kind of an awkward, it's like he's just at the point where it's kind of starts getting awkward, so we'll make an assessment then. But we take it down, which is fine by us. If he just has €2, it's a slam dunk call. If he is like 220, 230, it's pretty much still a slam dunk call. He's at the point where it starts getting a little bit trickier if he does open jam there. Deuce 4, we do open the button very, very wide, but this would be too wide, especially with the seemingly active player in the big blind as well. It's always really important to note your big blind, especially when you are looking to make lighter than average steals. If the big blind is overfolding to steals, we can have at it and pretty much raise any two. If he is a seemingly decent-ish aggressive player, which, I mean, this guy, it's a super small sample again. Like, all of our samples are going to be small here so far because we don't play tons in this pool. But over 37 hands, he's been very active and aggressive so far, so the information that we do have would indicate that we should be opening a little bit tighter on average against him. And you got to make do with the information that you have. So we're not going to be making any groundbreaking adjustments to our overall strategy, but we can start making some subtle adjustments to our range, like expanding them or tightening them ever so slightly, based on the limited information that we do have. Pocket 10 is obviously very straightforward open, so ideally we would like some action here. But again, if we take it down, what do I always say? There are always worst case scenarios, so we're not too sad about that either. Excuse me. The deuce 4 suited has some potential to be played depending on whether it's raised and the size of the raise more importantly. If somebody min opens, for example, we're certainly not going to be folding, versus the 3x though. When it goes multi-way, we are going to call. If this was just folded around to us, we'd just be letting it go. In a multi-way pot though, we're happy to see some flops with these kind of baby suited connectors. When we get 3-bet, it's an easy fold obviously. And we're going to be ISOing the queen and the 10 over on the top left table versus this limper. Because we're in position this time, we're going to be 4xing over the limp rather than the 5x when we're out of position. So Jackie 12 looking to make his decision, taking his time. He folds, sits around to the big blind now. He's pretty aggressive so with what we've seen, so he may come back over the top of the 3-bet on occasion here, but hey, he decides not to. So now we're heads up against the limper, which is absolutely a great result for us. And he decides to fold as well, so fine result all around. We're just going to top up marginally here. We're going to lather, rinse and repeat versus this guy. We're not going to allow him to limp in and play small pots, which seems to be his overall strategy. We've yet to see him raise after 30 hands. He's playing 21% of his hands, and he is either just raising or calling raises with all of them. So that's the kind of loose passive player that we love to play against, because they're basically just giving their chips away. We've got very little equity in this pot if we get called here, but we are going to fire a c-bet because these types of players tend to play very, very straightforwardly, so I think we're going to just take it down very, very often, and when not, we can safely enough just give up. This is a really, really bad run out for us here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bet small and go for the bet fold, or actually am I going to check call? Yeah, we're going to check call actually. We're just going to check back our pair here now. So yeah, he has the queen, I'm not shocked. But the fact that he's only check calling is like close enough to the top of his range there means that our play is going to be good overall. We're going to call here. Obviously, we're not loving life here with 4 to a straight, but we do have top 2 pairs. So if he bets again, I guess we just let this go, but it kind of sucks. The problem with calling down here is that it's really hard for him to have hands that he wants to turn into a bluff here. He's going to have a lot of showdown value hands. When he double barrels especially, he can be bluffing the turn, but I don't think he's going to be bluffing the river very, very often, so we're just going to go ahead and let this go. Never fun having to fold 2 pair, but there, I mean, it was just such a bad board for us, we didn't really have much choice. And the ace tray we're going to be folding from mid position. The 6-8, we're not going to be folding our big blind if it's folded around to us just because it's a min raise and we're getting 3.5 to 1 on our money. Actually, I prefer 3-betting rather than flatting versus this guy, so that's what we're going to do. Seems like he's opening way too many hands, and so far he's been overfolding to 3-bets, so that's definitely a little bit loose, but I think it's going to be okay. When he's only min raised, he's shown a lot of weakness, so it can never be that bad. And we're happy to fire in, although against this guy perhaps we are not. Yeah, we're actually just going to flat call versus this 3x open. We're too strong to consider folding, and I'm not a huge fan of 3-betting versus this particular player. The reason being his stats so far seem like he is reasonably competent and aggressive. He hasn't folded 3-bets so far, and we're going to be if we do 3-bet him, we're going to be bloating the pot out of position quite frequently, which we don't like. When we are 3-betting with these kinds of hands, we want a pretty high folded 3-bet in general when we're 3-betting when we're out of position, because obviously playing pots out of position, especially 3-bet pots, can be quite tricky. Let's just chop this hand up. So we have a jack and a jack, which we are going to be bringing in for a raise. If we get 3-bet here, we are going to 4-bet. And we're going to call the king-queen here in position versus this guy. Hopefully this guy puts in the squeeze now. He doesn't. And we're going to bet our top pair here versus Silver Surfer. Just going to call this donk bet. And wonderful turn for us, obviously. Now we're praying that he has the king. Don't think he's going to have the king too often, but we have to start betting for value and try to build a pot. So the fact that he just checked folds there means that we had the best hand the whole way. We weren't obviously folding to a similar size bet on the turn if he continued leading there, and we would have made decisions on the river, but obviously when the jack gets there, we have a very, very straightforward bet on the turn and river. The 8-4 suited, we are going to steal if it's folded to us, which it is. We open exceptionally wide, blind versus blind here. We're going to stick with our plan of... Oh, sorry, now I thought this guy had limped again. We're actually just going to fold here. Basically, the reason I would be looking to ISO a limper is the fact that we can play really profitably post-flop against them. When we're just raising first in, though, I think ace-7 is just a little bit too weak. But when we're looking to ISO against a player, we can, because the chances of ending up heads up against the weak player is quite high, we can expand our stealing range there, essentially. So that would be what I'd be looking to do. That would be the adjustment I'm looking to make versus this guy. And as I said, if somebody's playing 21% of hands and hasn't raised a single one yet, you can be guaranteed they are just giving their chips away in the game. It's just not possible to win with the way he's playing, basically. So, in general, in short, don't be that guy. If you're the first person into the pot and you are looking to commit chips, just raise. There are very few scenarios where open limping is best. And I would argue at this limit there are 0 examples. Unless maybe if you have one guy, if you're just trapping against a guy who just goes absolutely bonkers and has been open jamming loads, that kind of thing, then maybe you can consider kind of limping as a trap there. But in general, that sucks, we get the walk of the kings. But in general, if you're looking to commit chips, you need a really good reason to not just be open raising yourself. Uh, 6-4, not much we can do. We're going to let this one go, and we're going to be opening the pocket eights from under the gun. 5 deuce we will let go. Don't mind if either of these guys call. None of them do though, so we take it down. Again, taking it down pre-flop is far from a disaster. The jack and the 4, if there's any raise, this is just way too trashy a hand to consider doing anything with. We're happy just to check. Again, against this kind of player, we're going to be raising here really wide, but this would just be... If we're raising this hand, we're essentially doing it with 100% of our range, which would be bad. And we flop top pair, which is great news. We're going to start this off with a check. That is not a particularly good card for us. We're going to check, and we were going to check call, but when he overbets, I just don't think he is ever going to be bluffing here. Especially when if he's the kind of player who's limping in, he's checking back flops and stuff like that. When he just starts overbetting, he's just going to have the goods pretty much always. So putting any more chips in is just going to be a recipe for disaster there. That kind of bet sizing error is something that's really indicative of a weaker player, I find. They just don't really have a plan, and they're making up things as they go along, and it shows. They're just kind of doing silly things and allowing us to play what I would consider to be perfect poker against them, or close to it. So we're going to complete here with this guy and see a flop. Hopefully this guy doesn't raise it up. It's really strange to see a short stack player playing this tight. Usually the short stackers are going to be a little bit wilder. We're going to 3-bet here with the Queen 9 suited. But yeah, the fact that he's playing like a 10-3 style, so he's only played 3 hands out of the 30 that we have on him, and he's only raised 3% of them, so he's raised a single hand basically. So we have 3-bet here with the Queen 9. We have a backdoor flush draw. We are going to c-bet, and we're just going to call and see a turn here with our flush draw rather. We pick up a gut shot, and the cool thing about this gut shot is that it'll put 4 to a straight on the board, so our implied odds are actually not terrible. When we get check called here and the ace rolls off, it's just a terrible card for us to keep representing, so we're going to give it up. And we're going to call and see it river, and yeah, we're not putting any more chips in the middle here now. So unfortunately we don't get there, but hey, these things are going to happen. So going back to our trend of ISOing limpers really wide, King 6 more than good enough to be doing this, because we're just going to be able to c-bet and take down flops so frequently against this kind of guy. And sometimes we hit a flop ourselves as well, of course, and sometimes he folds. So this guy is at 2 of our tables, he's over here as well, so we're going to be utilizing the same strategy against him on both, obviously, where we're just going to be playing very, very aggressively and just not allowing him to see cheap flops, which is obviously what he wants to do, and it's what his game plan revolves around. He's the kind of player who just wants to see tons of flops, flop 2 pair or better, and shovel the chips in, basically. We get 3-bet, and we get 3-bet quite small. The problem is, though, this guy is short stacked, and we have a raggedy ace. We're going to let this one go. It sucks because we're getting such a good price, but just the fact that he's this short stacked means that our implied odds aren't as good as I would like. If we do flop a top pair type hand, it's still going to be pretty tricky to progress. So I'm a fan of just letting that one go, because we're going to be dominated so frequently there, and that's in that instance. 7-8 we're going to be opening if it is folded to us. If there's any raise before us, we're going to be letting it go. Going to fire here. We've got a couple of backdoor straight draws, but in general, ideally we just want to take it down here and now. We pick up a pair. I'm going to continue and just really target his 9x basically here and try to get him to fold a 9. So we're going to bet on the larger side here. He does call, which sucks. He shows us a king, which is not surprising when he does call the turn. The second reason I liked barreling there when we picked up the pair was because he can still have a lot of flush draws as well that I wanted to make sure we charged. So when he has those kinds of hands in his range, I'm not a fan of just check folding what can definitely be the best hand. So if we're going to, when I don't like check calling and I don't like check folding, my preference is just to lead myself. But never fun running our bluffs into top pairs that are never going to fold, obviously. As I always say, if you don't get caught bluffing enough, you are probably not bluffing enough. So we definitely don't want this guy to leave. It looks like he might be though. I think he's been auto-posting his blinds up until now, so it looks like he is finished. Which kind of sucks because he's just been slowly but surely giving away his blinds, which we like. Hopefully he comes back. King 4, same kind of strategy that we've discussed quite often. If it's folded to us, we are going to be bringing it in for a steal, and if there's a raise before us, we're going to be letting it go. Definitely too weak to be 3-betting, but it is perfectly reasonable to be using as a steal. We are going to flat call here with the suited connectors though. Let's see a flop in position. Hopefully this guy doesn't thwart our plan and come back over the top. He doesn't, which we like. That's a pretty good flop, guys. What do you think? Something tells me we are going to win this hand. So the problem is that it's very difficult to get paid here, unless somebody has a better flush, in which case it'll be very easy to get paid. But in general, we can't really raise here. We're just going to flat call and try to keep this guy in the pot. I'm going to call again if this guy, hopefully he bets again, and hopefully he keeps going on the larger side. When he checks and disappoints us, we are going to bet ourselves, but mainly just because he can be pot controlling with a reasonable amount of hands that aren't planning on folding. So checking back I don't think is optimal. Unfortunately he does fold though, but hey, I mean, as I said, when you have the board that crippled, it's always going to be tricky to get paid. But if he has any kind of reasonable spade, he may continue, but might not be all that likely to put more chips if he doesn't improve, so we want to charge him on the turn. He can also have a decent number of pocket pairs that he just doesn't want to bet out of fear of getting raised, like hands like pocket tens there, especially if he doesn't have a club, or a spade rather. He might not be looking to build a particularly huge pot, so he can definitely be checking there to pot control against our range. So we want to keep betting there and trying to build a pot. I mean, we can slow play and try to get him to catch up with his bluffs, but even then, we're only going to be winning one extra street, whereas we can win a larger river bet if he has the kind of hand like pocket tens and so on, if a safe river rolls off for him, basically. So that's our plan of action there. queen in the tray, we are going to let go, and we're going to be bringing in the ace tray suited for a raise. We're just going to check back here, see if we flop with our raggedy hand. Unfortunately, we don't hit anything fun. And we're bringing in the suited one gapper here from under the gun. Definitely on the bottom end of my range here, but it's going to be perfectly reasonable in these games where people are making quite a lot of mistakes post-flop. This isn't a board I fancy c-betting, mainly because he's going to have way too many pocket pairs that aren't folding. When he checks back, we are going to bomb it here. We're going to bet really large here and try to make it look like we have an ace that was checking to trap on the flop, basically. Should be a fairly common line at these limits where they check to trap and then they just bet massively on the turn. So we can use people's interpretations, those kinds of sizes, to make them do what we want, and in that instance we want him to fold. Suited queen, literally any two. I'm going to be opening any two cards against this guy. A suited queen is more than good enough to be stealing here. He has proven himself to be one of the, possibly the nittiest short stacker I have ever seen. And we're happy enough to open here. This guy doesn't look like he is all that active either, but it's a much smaller sample. Fantastic flop for us, obviously. We have middle pair and we have a flush draw. So we have oodles of equity against pretty much any hand you can imagine this guy to have. We now have a flush, so we are going to continue betting. He folds, which is unfortunate. Although the fourth flush card came in there, so if he had called and that had rolled off, I think we were going to be in a lot of trouble there pretty often. When he does call there, he is often going to have a better flush draw than the 10 high flush draw, so if he had continued, we would have been in a bit of an awkward spot on the river. We certainly wouldn't have been looking to invest more chips. If he had bet, it would have been gross, but we probably would have had to fold. I'm not a huge fan of folding flushes there, especially like with the way when he would have had to run a run of the flush, so it's not like he has tons and tons of flushes, but just when he does call, he's going to have a decent amount in that instance, so we would have had to let it go. Flop top pair, let's have a bet. Definitely don't want to get raised here, but we'll see what he does. He does opt for the raise. It does seem like on the more aggressive side. We're not going to be folding our top pair just yet. He can have 8-9 that has gotten there. He can still have a lot of flush draws though that we're ahead of. If he bombs big here, I think we're just going to let this go. Does. Yeah, I think trying to continue here will be a spot where a lot of people, I think he's going to have us beat here more often than not. When he doesn't have us beat, he's still going to have a decent amount of equity. He's going to have at least a flush draw here usually. I mean, some people do just kind of spaz out with weird bluffs where they shouldn't, especially kind of blind versus blind. But like that ace card is a perfect example of just a spot where if we call there, we have to check again to him. And that ace is just such a good card for him. And there's a lot of cards where he can just kind of put us under so much pressure. So it's not even a situation of just whether we have the best hand now. It's how the rest of the hand is going to play out that's important. And there are no cards really that we're comfortable leading the river with. So best case scenario, we end up with 2 pair and we're left facing a big river bet against hands that can include hands like straights and sets and stuff like that. So and then worst case scenario, obviously overcards can hit and he can also be putting us under the same kind of pressure with those sorts of hands, and if he is bluffing it's going to be very difficult for us to call down, so continuing there will be very tricky to turn a profit. I think it's a big situation where a lot of people apply too much power, or they overplay their top pair type hands, especially their marginal top pair hands, and that's a big trap that you can fall into and end up losing a lot of money in spots where you really don't have to. So like that's at best that's a very marginal profitable call on the turn, and at worst it's a significantly losing one depending on the player type. So I'd much rather make a small mistake by folding than make a huge mistake by continuing, basically, when we're going to likely have to make an even bigger potentially bigger mistake on the river, basically. So we're going to be calling it a day now. We are going to we'll play out the rest of this hand now. We'll raise up the ace king. Anyway, we have ace queen, so a bit of a streak to round off the session. We'll stop posting our blinds now, just in case we hit any more. We're going to fold the 10 deuce. We're going to bring the ace queen in for a 3-bet here. Flop top top with the ace king, which we like. Got a caller. King 10 is a concern. King Jack has equity against us. Queen Jack has equity against us. Queen 10 is possible. I think we're going to check here for pot control, mainly because he has a decent number of 2-pair combos here. He can be slow playing King Queen. He can have King 10. He can have Queen 10. And we're still ahead of all of his Jack X, which we like. We're going to bet for value now and be really upset if he raises us. But when he checks back here, we should have the best hand very often. So we're just going to try to get paid by a hand like King Jack, Queen Jack, those types of hands. He folds, which is unfortunate. So that's going to be me, guys. As I said, it's been Fergal from Poker VIP. Hope you have enjoyed the series. Any questions or comments, as always, feel free to leave them in the various social media, on YouTube, Poker VIP, anything like that. I'll do my best to get back to you. And I'll see you again for another video series shortly. Thank you very much for watching.